Last year I made a short film called Night Drive. It's about two friends that are driving at night after the one asks the other to pick him up from a party. Long story short, both of them die in a car accident. If you haven't seen that film, here it is.
I don't understand how it happened. I wasn't drinking. I never drank. Hey dude!
Hey bro, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, bro?
Oh,
How many beers have you had?
I think just 2, bro.
Yeah, to my ass.
Dude, why are you driving so slow?
I'm doing 80.
So what? It's slow as.
It's a 60 zone.
Yeah, there's no one around, just speed up, bro. I think I'm gonna be sick.
Do you need me to pull over? What would you do if it was in your hands?
Recently I made another film called Day Tripping. This is about a bad drug trip. If you haven't seen that video, a link is on screen now. Now these two movies have a massive amount of difference in quality. I'm not actually that proud of Night Drive. I don't consider it to be one of my films, and that's why it doesn't appear on this channel. Day Tripping, however, I am quite proud of. I do enjoy the film, I enjoyed making it, I enjoyed editing it. I enjoy every time somebody watches it and gives me positive feedback and tells me that it is good. Mainly because I feel that I've grown as a filmmaker. I have applied way more film techniques to Day Tripping as what I did to Night Drive. And here are a couple of things I did differently. Night Drive was a dead-on shot the entire film, apart from the little bit where the camera follows up towards the car. And frankly, watching a dead-on shot in anything really is quite boring, which is ironic because this is a dead-on shot. But there are a few things that break up scenes that make them more entertaining. Now both of these films are school projects, so obviously they both had different agendas. Night Drive was a PSA / advertisement about driving at night, really, whereas Day Tripping was an alternative film about a drug trip. So obviously I had to be way more creative with Day Tripping than what I did with Night Drive. This required me to be way more creative with my shots, the movement within a scene, like where I was in each shot, where my actor was positioned. And even though I didn't use a gimbal as such, the stabilization of the footage was still pretty steady, like steady enough to watch, but the jitteriness of it kind of added to the character, sort of that you were eavesdropping into this guy's life. I have recently started using a journal in which I write all of my shots, my shot descriptions, everything that I need to film when and where. This allows me to sort of just keep track of everything that I have filmed versus what I need to film. I used to go out and film things without really making a shot list or even a script in some occasions. I would just go out and film things, and I found that it is actually way easier to make a film when you have some sort of physical form of your movie before you're even shooting it, and a shot list is pretty much the perfect way to do that. A lot of the time I was finding that I was shooting films and I was missing shots that weren't exactly like pivotal to telling a story. It just made it flow a little bit better. Because like, think about getting out of a car, for instance. There is you sitting in the car, opening the door, taking a step out, getting out of the car, closing the door, walking away. That's maybe like 6, 7, 8 shots. Maybe even more if you're creative with it. But I was shooting sequences like that in about 3 shots, which really made the film look jittery. It didn't flow properly. You can't actually see that in Night Drive because there is nobody getting out of the car, but I try to make things as flowy as possible now. I found it important to use every aspect that your brain thinks about when you're doing something as a shot. So for instance, with the car again, you're sitting in the car, you're thinking about sitting in the car, you want to get out, so you reach for the handle. That's one shot. Opening the door and stepping out, planting your foot, is another shot. Getting out of the car could be another shot. Could be the same shot as the previous one. Closing the door, another shot. Walking away, another shot. Now, I understand that recording Foley can be quite challenging, especially if you don't have the right equipment, but that is where the internet comes into play. With a simple Google search, you can find thousands of websites that all have Foley audio files on them. Some are community ones, which are the ones I prefer. Some are professional, which you obviously need to pay for, but the reason I prefer the community ones is anybody can upload audio files, which does have a little bit of compromisation to quality. There are a lot of audio files that you can use for absolutely no charge. In regards to lighting, it's better to keep your shots too lit than too dark. This is because you can always alter your shots in post-editing to make your shots look different. Like for instance, you can have a well-lit shot like this one and turn it into night like that. It just got really dark in here. Now, I understand that for a lot of people, editing software is out of their reach. Obviously, there is iMovie and Windows Movie Maker, all that kind of shit. And none of them are actually good, apart from HitFilm. So HitFilm is an application that has been released by HitFilm, the people on YouTube, and is a completely free editing software. It handles very similar to Premiere Pro, even looks the same. It's very professional, and HitFilm have pretty much just made this free because they believe that a lot of filmmakers are challenged financially, so they have released this free editing software. In terms of equipment, I have used the exact same camera for both of these movies. It's actually the camera I'm using right now, which is the Canon EOS 700D or EOS Rebel, I believe it's called in some parts of the world, with an 18 to 55mm lens that came with the camera. Because most of Night Drive was a stationary shot, I used a tripod for that, which was just a cheap one that I bought from JB Hi-Fi, and I used my iPhone to record audio. I also used the VideoMic Mini? There's so many subtitles to that, it's just this one. And you can actually quite clearly see it in the film. Because we were in an enclosed space like a car, I had to keep the microphone quite close to my actors, and I couldn't find a place to mount it where you could hear both actors. So those are the things I did differently. The key to good filmmaking, however, is not your equipment or your lighting or anything like that. It's creativity. It takes a very creative mind to come up with shots and how to compose them to make them look good. Like I mentioned with the car, figuring out angles and movement within scenes that looks natural, that doesn't draw your eye away from what is happening in the scene, but still makes it look organic, is a very challenging thing. Now, I understand that a lot of films have broken this boundary of filming in interesting ways and have still gotten away with it because their shots, although quite bland, are interesting because of what is being seen. That is where your talent comes in. For instance, The Godfather. There is a pivotal scene right in the beginning of the film that establishes Don Corleone, this dude, as a quite menacing force, and that is because throughout this entire scene the shot is focused specifically on him. Even when this guy talks, we don't actually see his face. It's because we are being targeted as the audience to feel this menacing force that is The Godfather. Look, I'm not here to tell you how to make films. Filming is not that difficult. Trust me, people have done it before. But a good movie, that is a completely different story. That is not something that money can buy and not something that equipment can put out. That is creativity. There have been amazing feature-length films that have been made with absolutely no budget if you're thinking about the movie industry. Submarine, for instance, is quite an amazing movie that has been produced on just about $500,000. So go out, find something interesting, film it, play around with shots, play around with composition, play around with everything there is to know about filmmaking. You can't just become a good filmmaker by watching a bunch of videos, you have to do it yourself. And I do believe that's the reason why I become a better filmmaker. I've learned through trial and error that some things work, some things don't, and sometimes you just have to challenge the normative. Practice makes perfect, and in the end, that's all that really matters.